You're first.
Cannot steal this mic. I'm too short.
Program. Just a couple of things, okay? All right, we'll give everyone just about another minute to get forward towards the bleachers and we will get started.
I think so. It's pretty quiet, so.
Yeah.
This is so good and so hot at the same time.
I'm gonna go try some of that. That's up here, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome everybody to Startland News Live. This is the very first edition of Startland News Live, and our first live event back from the pandemic. I'm Austin Barnes, for those of you who have not met me or are familiar. I'm joined by Tim Simons and Tony Feltz. Team, how are you feeling?
I'm excited. It's good to see this space filled up again, and it's really cool that most of the vendors are people who we've written on in the past, stories up on the billboards, but yeah, it's a really collaborative effort, so it's cool to see it all come together.
Simon, how are you feeling over there?
Well, I've had 2 years to become more introverted, so I decided to dress loud so that I can be loud.
It does work. Conversation starter, all those good things. Well, we want to thank our sponsors for helping make this event possible tonight. Startland News Live is presented by Google Fiber. You might have seen them in the back over there. They've got all kinds of swag. If you haven't connected with them, be sure to say hello because they've got all kinds of great services and features and things to tell you about. So be sure to connect with them. They've been a fantastic partner to us, and we are so grateful to have their support with this event. And of course, the folks here at Spark Kansas City, the official home of Startland News. You might have seen our newsroom back over here. We work in this space every day. I think we can say that we really enjoy it. We moved here during the pandemic, so welcome to our home. We're glad to have you all here. The Kaufman Foundation, as well as Evergy Ventures and Casey Bizcare are also sponsors of tonight's event, and we are grateful for their support as well. Folks from each of those organizations in the room tonight, so be sure to get around and connect with them. But part of Startland News Live is bringing the headlines that you see in Startland News to life. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And so we're going to start off just by talking about some of the recent headlines that you might have seen in Startland News. The first of which was a pretty big deal for our website traffic. But the addition of a Meta data center here in Kansas City, $800 million investment in the Northland. What do y'all think about that? That was pretty massive for our city a couple weeks ago.
I think it's an exciting addition to an area where there's not a lot. So yeah, I think it's a lot to take in, and it will be interesting to see what that brings in the years to come. But yeah, that was one that a lot of people read, whether it was out of anger or interest. So yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the impact probably is going to come from attaching that brand name to Kansas City. So I think a lot of people are really excited about what bringing Meta could bring later.
It was a surprisingly controversial story. Because if you go through our Facebook page, you just see comments of people who are so upset that this data center is coming here, but you also see people who are very excited. So it was one of those really interesting stories that you didn't necessarily know would trigger such a response, but people are passionate about it. I'm sure everybody here has their opinions about it, but it was quite an interesting story to see the feedback on, I thought.
Yeah.
Shanna, I know you've been up to quite a few stories lately. What is the latest on the Gift Business Center?
Yeah, so if y'all read last week, Gift, which is a local nonprofit, they have become pretty well known for giving out grants to small businesses and entrepreneurs, but they were getting hundreds of applications, and they could only take on 2 entrepreneurs to give them that mentoring, the finances, and they were like, how do we reach the 98 others? So that's what this business center is going to do. It's on the east side where they don't have a resource like this, and that's going to provide financial mentoring, business mentoring, a co-working space, which is super cool. Just like speaking from our experience, a co-working space is so nice to have. You can collaborate with others in the space. It's a really exciting environment to be around. I mean, like, look at it right now. As well as resources for like headshots and that type of equipment. So it's really all inclusive. Anyone can be there. Anyone can sign up for a space to take their business and work out there for a day, an hour, whatever they need. So yeah, that was really awesome to see a ribbon cutting. I think that was one of the first ones that I've seen in Kansas City since moving here. And yeah, I think I'm excited to see what else comes out of that.
I'm actually glad you mentioned moving here, because we've not ever had an event in the 2 years you've worked here to formally recognize that you joined our team during the pandemic. So if you've never met Jana, this is Jana.
Happy to be here.
Yes. So in terms of other headlines that we've had lately, you two both had worked on kind of the CEO to CEO challenge announcement, and there were some supplier diversity topics that were brought up in there. Can you tell us a little bit about that one, Jana?
Yeah. So there is a new initiative called the CEO to CEO Challenge that's surrounding supplier diversity efforts. For most of the companies who are taking that on, this is kind of the first time they're being really intentional about building those efforts, and it's been really interesting to see what are some of the roadblocks that they're facing and how are they working out these pain points, because it's a full-time position, it's really a full-time team, and it's just something that now they're adding on to certain departments. So that looks different in a lot of different ways. I was just speaking to Hush Blackwell this morning, and one of the ways that they're just tackling that first step into it is buying from going to lunch and like using diverse small businesses for catering and stepping out where they normally wouldn't. So that's like a small piece of it, but it's really a big department to tackle. So it's been really interesting talking to people who are just doing it for the first time.
And then I would add that one of the most interesting things I thought from Jana's reporting was the description of what supplier diversity initiatives are for, that they're kind of flip side to DEI training within your own organization that looks at how your culture treats diversity, and this is how your company or your organization approaches diversity from the outside, how they engage with the community, and what steps they're taking to kind of prove diversity initiatives kind of holistically.
Yeah.
We've got one more headline. The We Code KC story thing came out. Look, I could remember how to talk. This really is a live event. The We Code KC story that came out a couple of weeks ago, some of you may have seen it. They are potentially losing their space that you see here because the city is wanting to sell the building that they're in. They leased it to them for $1, and so they're having some struggle there. That's a story we're continuing to follow. So that's advancing in the city council. So we're going to bring updates on that. But that was another story that was pretty popular here recently, and people had quite a bit to say about that one. But of course, there are several other headlines that we're going to get to tonight when we bring on our guests. So we're going to continue telling you a little bit about the latest news here in Kansas City startup, innovation, and entrepreneurial community. But we're going to do that now with some of our guests. So Tommy, you have the first segment. Jana and I are going to lead you to it and let your guests join you up here on stage.
Welcome to The Blocks, the greatest show on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs from all walks of life live together while going through a formal startup accelerator.
Feeling out of my wheelhouse, a little overwhelmed, feel like waxing something up his beard.
Yeah, let's just get used to that. The stages of business range between pre-launch all the way to people already earning millions of dollars a year.
You know, it's legal.
Competing in a series of workshops, one-on-one consults, pitches, and exercises to determine who is the greatest startup entrepreneur on the blocks.
I totally get off on that. I'm taking a look at the scoreboard, a little pissed off right now.
I expect to win.
Moderated, judged, and mentored by world-class coaches will be ranked from first to last.
You have single-handedly raised the bar across all aspects. Thank you.
All right, we're going to welcome Wes Startland. All right, Wes, I told you I was going to throw this to you. Tell us what we just saw.
Okay. I don't know how many of y'all know who I am, but I've been in the entrepreneurship scene locally for 12-ish plus years now. I own the Beta Blocks Business Incubator, and in that time, we've been able to help over 300 companies get off the ground. Simultaneously, I was living this like secondary life where I was also a television star. I've been on one of the longest running, biggest reality competition shows on the literal planet for about 16 years. And in the process of running this accelerator and being a television star, I learned a hell of a lot about both. And I've always had this like dream of combining it, where we could take all the learnings of a traditional entrepreneurship education program and put it inside of a show to make it more accessible to the world, so they could learn about entrepreneurship in a way that is less boring than the ways that entrepreneurship is typically taught. And so we almost are like, what's the saying, like you take your medicine down with a couple spoonfuls of sugar. Well, we have hidden a entrepreneurship curriculum inside of like a Top Chef Project Runway-esque looking show. And by the time you finish watching it, you don't realize that we've stuck an entire like month or two of our traditional accelerator class inside of it. And then Jonay was was in our first season, and she crushed it as we expected. So that's a little bit about what you just saw and where that came from.
And Jonay, as you mentioned, your first season and you're one of our Kansas City startups to watch this year. Can you give us kind of an elevator pitch for your company and a little about yourself?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my name is Jonay Johnson, and I am the founder and CEO of one of the local startup here in Kansas City called Interplay. And at Interplay, we work towards creating remote crating experiences with our product, the Play Touch. So pet parents will be able to dispense food and water to their dog, see and talk to their dog, and play music and sounds all from their phone while away from home.
And Wes, why was Jonay a good fit for this particular project?
I mean, as you guys have covered fairly well, she's really, really good at just about everything that she does. Everything she picks up, she's a star at, and she crushed everyone in quite a few of the competitions, outright won several of the days, and I mean, there's just a lot of complimentary things to say about what she did. And she's working with dogs, which is a little bit of a cheat code to my heart.
Love it.
Tell us a little about the casting process and how you got started in it and how you think it went.
Yeah, so for me, it was ironic. It was a no-brainer for me to apply because I had originally applied for Beta Blocks and didn't get in, rightfully so. I was nowhere near ready, but I made it pretty far considering the stage I was at. So thank you, Wes. And I saw that they were casting, I think it was through Startland, of course, right? That's what we all find out, the local latest and the greatest in entrepreneurship here. So I saw they were casting. I'm like, okay, well, let me go ahead. It was really easy. It was pretty straightforward. I just kind of put the name of the company, then like a few sentences about what it was that we did. So went ahead and applied. I just was throwing stuff in there, hoping that maybe it hit. Then I got a call. Did I get a call from you or an email?
All right, you cheated a little
I was
bit.
gonna say I kind of cheated the process. I didn't know if we wanted to say that live or anything, but I had a streamlined application. It wasn't what most people.
Yeah,
would.
she went to the top of the pile, if you will, because yes, she didn't get in because I was one of the very first people you ever talked to and all this stuff. So super early to Beta Blocks. This was like 3-4 years ago. She then went through kind of a digital program to get people ready for Beta Blocks. And I know this sounds kind of creepy, but I could see how many minutes the students spend on that and how many logins you have. And she logged into that thing like 100 times, went through the whole thing obviously at least twice, and we don't give that away to just anybody. So then when the application came across to be a part of the show, to have a Kansas City rep there, and to have someone that had proven to be so coachable and to go through, that I had seen, it was just an absolute no-brainer. And then a lot of the exercises that we do are various forms of pitches to prove comprehension of that day's subjects. And she was crushing people. And so even though it is mostly a compliment to her, it's also a compliment to all the programs that she's been a part of that have prepared her for such a thing. Because there was a lot of people that were there that did not go through that type of thing, and she was running circles around something quite beautiful.
Tell us a little about the range of companies that Jonay was competing against.
We had companies that were in the process of $10 million raises, and we had people that hadn't launched yet, and we're going to always keep it that way. So a very a smorgasbord of sorts.
Who impressed you that was among the competitors?
Honestly, it was something different from all of the companies that were there, and that goes to shout out to Wes for his casting process and being really selective, at least especially for my season there. It was a wide variety, but some of the standouts for me, or that I was really looking to as like some of the top competition, was definitely Anchor Rides. I think that was the biggest raiser that they had, the one that he touched on about the 10 million raise. And then also Independent Beauty Pros, Lindsay there, along with the difference. Ogie, he's a shoe, he's great there. And then I think those are some of the top three for me. Also, Kavanaugh, cool and dope.
You mentioned sneaking kind of Beta Blocks' programming into the show. Can you tell us a little about how Beta Blocks' fingerprints were on this? And did you carry over some of your philosophy about bootstrapping and funding into the show?
Yeah, very much so. So we have this is controversial, and especially in a room like this, because I know there's probably some very quintessential startup people in here. Our top 10 companies last year did about $100 million in sales, and not $1 of outside capital was raised, which pisses some of you off, and I understand that, but we care so much about ringing the register. Like, we make stuff, we sell stuff, we make more stuff, we sell more stuff, and we earn money. And we don't get to grow as fast, but we also don't spend years chasing capital that we don't deserve yet. And so it doesn't make us very trendy or popular amongst a certain percentage of rooms like this, but we get stuff done, we ring the register. And it's not fancy, we don't get published in a lot of news articles because if we don't have that $1 million raise, we don't get it. But meanwhile, we're like earning $1 million. And that is in our DNA of coaching. And if Kansas City, and this would be great, if we get 10 new venture capital funds in the next year that each have $50 million arsenal for each one of them, I will change my methodology. But until then, I'm going to go get money from our customers' pockets and not from the not as robust pockets of the local scene.
Jonay, what resonated with you from kind of those lessons from the show? I found myself, as we were watching it kind of as a family, I told Wes that trying to explain cap tables and marketing plans to a 6-year-old. So he didn't take a lot out of it, but what resonated with you?
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of it overall. For me, it wasn't necessarily the lectures that we went through each day, because I know for me it was kind of a review of what I went through with Alpha Blocks and then some of the other programs that I've gone through. But it was really the environment and being able to be in an atmosphere with a lot of people with that same entrepreneurial mindset and hustle and grind, just really working towards a vision that often many people don't see, because I'm aware that entrepreneurial mindsets aren't quite frequent, but being able to be in there with like-minded people was very much what I got the most out of, and being able to bounce ideas off of people, kind of seeing what they did, where they failed, where they went wrong, and how I can apply that and kind of overcome and avoid some of the obstacles that they ran into were very resonating with me, along with the part where we discussed funding, because I felt it was relevant to kind of where I was and where I'm projected to go with Interplay.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if you mentioned it, everyone lived together. I rented 2 mansions off the plaza, and everyone runs around and says the word accelerator, but accelerators, you get together for a couple hours here or there, you take a couple days off, you get together a couple days. We ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We lived underneath the same roof. We were with each other day in and day out. And so during that 7-day period, relationships truly do accelerate. And everyone kind of left with these kind of networking opportunities that just, it'd be like this, but it never ends, like for a week straight. That had some benefits that was pretty profound.
And Jenny was on season 1. You have season 2 and 3 that you've taken care of too. So what comes next?
So season 2 and 3 are already filmed and being edited, and I actually got to see the first rough draft of season 2 today, so it's pretty exciting. And we're casting for seasons 4 and beyond. So this is news to everyone because I haven't really said this publicly, but we are expanding to about 70 startups per batch. We have about 6 celebrity judges coming in, and we're doing that 1 week of every month for at least the next year. We have to move out of the mansions because we are too big for that. We're moving into hotels and accommodation and co-working space. And at the rate we're going, we're going to process somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000+ applicants to join. And then there's some other very exciting stuff that is close but not ready to present.
And what's next for you and Interplay?
I love that. So for me at Interplay, what's next is a launch party that's coming this year when we launch our Kickstarter for the pre-sale of our product.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys coming and telling us a little bit more about the show. I'm sure everybody's going to be, if they haven't already downloaded the app to watch the show, checking it out and following up for 2 and 3. Hold you to finding out more information about it too. Up next we have Chana, and Chana's going to guide us through a demonstration.
Making sure our electricity bill won't go through the roof. Our smart security catches any clear seeding of birdseed. My husband's always worried about his plants, but I set up a smart watering system and a smart humidifier. And while we're realizing I'm always busy accepting an $8 meeting on my first day back.
Google Fiber, you do vacation. We do internet. Sign up for Google Fiber today at fiber.google.com. Welcome to KC BizCare. We help business owners with a variety of resources, anyone from starting a business to applying for permits and everything in between. Our website is now an easy, user-friendly, virtual one-stop shop for doing business in Kansas City. Click the quick links to learn how to start a business or request for zoning clearance. We will even create a customized and interactive list, walking you through each step to starting your business. Because at KC BizCare, we truly care about you and your future Kansas City business. Check us out at bizcare.kcmo.gov.
Cool. Okay. If you're not following us on social media, please do that. Awesome. Well, I am here with Tings, Teresa, and head chef JJ. Thank y'all so much. You probably had some of their cooking if you were eating up there earlier. I believe we are going to make one of those dishes, correct?
Yes, we are actually going to show you the Filipino egg rolls, which is lumpia. So we're very sensitive about not calling it egg rolls.
Yes.
It has to be called lumpia, okay? So that's what he's going to show you today.
Awesome, awesome. This is a dish that my mom made me growing up, so it feels very homey to have it here in Kansas City.
Yes, I'm very excited to, finally have a place to show off Filipino cuisine because I grew up in New York City and it was everywhere. And I go to Chicago, it's everywhere. I go to Los Angeles, all the big cities, and there's Filipino restaurants everywhere. And I moved to Kansas City. I love it here, and there's nothing. And I'm like, why? we need to be showing this off. There's a lot of Filipino people here, but a lot of Filipino people that have moved here has kind of gone into healthcare or other industries. And me, I've been in the food and beverage industry for over 25 years. I've worked front of the house, I've managed them, I've worked as a consultant, I've opened up restaurants for other people, and I was like, hey, why not this? Why not my home? And so that's where the idea came from. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to wait anymore for somebody to do it. I'm going to do it myself.
That's incredible. And what is that jump like going from the corporate world then into the wild world of being an entrepreneur?
So corporate world wasn't really for me, but it paid good. Fair. So I needed to, I'm used to hard work. I'm used to being a salesperson. I'm the grind is not hard for me. But it was just one of those things that you have a revelation one day, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And if I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to do it for me. And I've got 4 daughters, and I was like, instead of complaining about going to work and working hard every day and not liking it, why not go to work and work hard and love it? And so it was, it was something that was a no-brainer. Finally, I just said, stop being scared, just do it.
Yeah.
So here we are. We'll see what happens.
And then let's jump over here. What do we have going on right now?
We got our lumpia wrappers, we got our mix, all of our ground meats, our spices. Teresa does not like cilantro, so we don't put cilantro in anything. So we argue about that a lot. Dumb cilantro cereal, but it's okay. She owns the place.
Yeah.
So,
What are the main things in that mix? Like what, if people wanted to make this at home, what do we have going on in there?
So there's different variables, and our recipe is my grandma's, and I can't give you that. I have to put a hit out on you. But so the differences in how to make lumpia is, if you don't like pork, you can make it with ground turkey, ground chicken, whatever. But this is the traditional way that how I grew up.
Right.
Eating it. It's ground pork. And it's got a lot of different, chopped up veggies in it, soy sauce, oyster sauce, and like some of our secret stuff that I can't tell you. And then basically you put that all together, you wrap it up in lumpia wrapper. The best way is to let it set, so you don't roll it and fry it right away.
Right.
It's not going to do you justice. You have to let it set. Kind of leave it in the fridge overnight if you can, and then fry it. And then you get the crispiest. It's magic in your face.
Okay, and I see he's doing like a little moist, like a liquid on
So
that.
that
What
is
is that?
just a slurry, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's variations on that. What we use is just water.
Okay.
Some people like to use egg wash. I mean, it's just basically a glue to seal it, because you don't want it not to be sealed tight, otherwise it'll explode when you try to fry it. It's not fun.
We don't want that.
So,
And you mentioned that this is your grandma's recipe. Is it to the
Yes.
T, very authentic?
well, so he said I don't like cilantro. So there are some Teresa tweaks to it, just because it's mine.
Yeah.
So I want it to be how I like it, and it seems to be working fine because people like it. So
Yeah, and now we're putting those into the fryer.
yes,
Okay. How long do they go in there?
until they turn golden brown and delicious.
Yeah, it's already smelling really good.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't tried it, it's up there afterwards.
Yes.
And then, so Tiggs opened in Parlor earlier this year.
We opened January 4th of this year, and it's inside of Parlor. It's downtown Kansas City. We're on the first floor. We are hoping that our second location will be ready by summer 2022. So
And that's a special location. That's on 39th Street?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the spot that we have in Parlor, it's just in a food hall, but nevertheless, it does what it's supposed to do. But the one on 39th Street is a full blast restaurant, so we have a really sexy bar. It's 25 plus tables, you know, for date night or what have you. It's going to be really decorated, really nice. We're going to have karaoke because I'm Filipino, so it's a must. So I look forward to seeing you all there.
Yeah, and you mentioned that when you came to Kansas City, there was that missing piece where there wasn't really a Filipino cuisine to go to. So how have you seen the community respond to Tings and Parlor?
You know what? I'm really happy about the customers that I've had at Parlor. They're so adventurous, and even if they've never had it, they're so excited to try things. And you know, just the vibe in downtown Kansas City is the best place to open up any kind of, you know, ethnic restaurant, because you know, the people in Kansas City are just so open to try new stuff. They're not scared. They're not, you know, they're not your just eat, you know, the regular stuff. They try things and then they talk about it. And then if they like it, they come back and they want to be friends with you. So it's, you know, it's perfect. I love it. I couldn't have done it in a better place to start it. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
That's incredible. You're getting a lot of first-time triers who are then becoming regulars.
Yes, they are, and you know, and they tell people about it, and it's just been such a blessing to be inside of Parlor. So
Yeah. And I
shout
know
out to them.
they're great. Have fun basement.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yeah, right.
And then you talked to me about how obviously there are cultural ties, family ties to these recipes. Like what's the significance of having your own restaurant and like what that means to you and your family?
Well, so you know, my grandma and my mom is very special to me, and they're both gone now, and this is my way of paying homage to them. You know, because I was that little girl that just want to hang out in the kitchen and just ask you 1,000 questions and be annoying, but who knew I was absorbing that and actually remembering it and actually taking it all in. You know, when you're a kid, you just think you're doing what you're doing. You know, and then you grow up and you miss them, and then you're like, hey, I remember they showed me how to do that. And then so now it's part of my life. It's going to be part of my children's lives. And so I couldn't be more grateful. So it's very special to me. It's super personal. It's not just a business. So,
Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Y'all, it smells so good up here. So good. And Chef JJ, I know you, hopefully I can talk about this, you also told me you left your job to come join Tings and be the head chef. How's it been for you so far?
It's been good. I've known Teresa for, over 10 years, you know. Who knows? It seems like we met yesterday. But we've kicked around ideas throughout the years, and about 6 months ago we got this thing going, writing recipes and arguing about things, and you know, lots of late night cocktails, you know, just like, what are we gonna do? What's happening? What's the dreams, aspiration for things? And it's cool to be in Parlor, start somewhere, and then just tackle one after the next dream and make it happen. 39th would be just awesome. Just taking this little menu to this huge thing. I'm excited about that. It's all fun. It's scary at the same time, and you just go with it, and that's the thrill of what we do, and that's what, you know, that's why I've been, you know, in kitchens for 30 years now. You know, since I was a little dude, I was 13, I started doing this. I've been addicted to it ever since, you know. So it's cool to have cool friends that are like, hey, chef, let's go, let's do something, let's make it happen. You know, and yeah, I just left my job about 3 weeks ago and jumped on full time with her, and just we're going for it. So super excited.
That's awesome. And 39th Street, there's so many local restaurants down there, so I think it's such a cool place to be, you know, with all those other small business owners. Awesome. It's smelling good here. It looks like
They're taking their sweet time. Just
that's
little,
okay.
Little home fryer.
That's okay. What other dish did you bring today?
So chef prepared, there's a sampler of chicken adobo, which is another staple. Our barbecue pork sticks, we brought some of that, and the pork belly, which is one of our, oh my God, we run out of that all the time, along with the lumpia at Parlor. So we brought those things here today, and I mean, hopefully, you know, it's hard to do it this way because I'm so particular with serving it. I want it to be fresh, hot out of the thing, but you know, So if you want the real deal, you have to come see us at Parlor.
Any other dishes that you would say are a must try if they're going down to Parlor?
So we have a noodle dish called pancit, and it's another Filipino staple. It's basically rice noodles with vegetables and shredded chicken. We can do it with, vegetarian option. So that's another one of our best sellers. For the bigger restaurant, there's going to be like quadruple the size of the menu that we have at Parlor now. So this is a nice start because we get to introduce some of the more popular dishes, and then kind of, when people trust you, then they'll try everything else. And so that was another reason why I wanted to do Parlor first, before going full blast.
And you mentioned that was kind of a happy accident. That wasn't necessarily the original plan.
Yes, and you know what? God intervenes and just shows you the right way to go. And so I'm just going to trust it and say thank you.
Yeah. Love it. So summer 2022?
Yes, fingers crossed, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can sing like Mariah Carey, even though, we think so. It's a lie.
And then growing so quickly, I mean, that's 2 restaurants in a year. Do you have did your background in corporate help with that rapid growth? And
Most
kind of
definitely
stabilizing
did,
it?
because I know how to turn a no into a yes real quick.
Yeah.
So, it helps. And, I just trust and believe that your path takes you to where you're supposed to end up. So just trust the journey. Just go with it.
Yeah. I want to thank you both so much for being here, for showing everyone how it's rolled, what goes inside, but not everything. And yeah, make sure that you try the food up there. We really appreciate you sharing a piece of your culture and your passion with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
At Evergy, we see energy differently, and we're changing the way it's supplied. Because you depend on energy more than ever, we've made it more reliable. When you expect a more responsible future, we've made it more sustainable. And when other costs increase, we've decreased our rates over the last 4 years. Reliable, sustainable, affordable energy that puts you first. That's everything to us. Evergy, the utility company.
All right, for our last segment of the evening, I'm going to welcome up Sandra Morris, Mia Richardson, and Evan Lewis. Y'all want to come on down? Yeah, well, get some motivated, of course. While you're up there, I'll talk about Nelson's Flavor Aids, which was just recently featured in Startland News. Nelson had a great deal with Hy-Vee where he was selling his flavor aids at Hy-Vee stores in Michigan. So be sure to check out what he's offering up here. He's got some great flavors and he's got great recommendations. So be sure to check that out. And Sam, I guess we could just start talking while we wait. You just had a feature in Startland News as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
What flavor did you get? All right. I've heard good things. Heard good things. These rocking chairs are awkward. We debated it. They do look good. All right. Well, I am thrilled to have the 3 of you here. It's always fun to talk to each of you individually, so I'm really excited that we've got this group situation going on because you all are doing such amazing work. And so I'm so curious to learn a little bit more about it and go beyond the headlines that we've been able to share recently. And so I want to start with Sam because we did just feature you like literally a couple of days ago. So you joined BizAir almost a year ago now. Tell us a little bit about, close, however time works. Tell us about this role and what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So formally, my title is Small Business Advocate with the City of Kansas City, and my background is in formal education, and that's really what guided my search for a job, was something that was education forward. And I met Nia. I actually invited myself into the office with a paper copy of my resume and all that good stuff.
Very traditional.
Yes, of course. But met Nia and just noticed that something was different about this government office. Not only was it did you have to jaywalk across the street from City Hall, and you didn't have to go through security, which I have mixed feelings about now, but it just felt not like this typical, government office. So when I first started, Nia, actually on my very first day, I put my lunch in the little refrigerator, and Nia invited me to lunch to talk about the role and talk about the office, which I was really excited for. And Nia's words to me were, "What do you want for entrepreneurship in Kansas City?" Which just blew me out of the water. And that's really what we focus on. What our goal is, if you will, is that we're fortunate not to have a numerical metric that we have to meet of X amount of people that we have to meet, or X amount of dollars that we have to push across the table. We even had a meeting in the city manager's office a couple weeks ago where the metric of success was entrepreneurial success. So it's really an office that I find unique and I'm excited to work in, because we measure our success by the success of the entrepreneurs that we serve, and we help license and we advocate for, and we turn no's into yeses and things like that.
Nia, I'm going to jump to you now. So since adding Sam to the team, how have things changed at BizCare, and kind of where are your priorities nowadays?
It was not horrible. No. So Sam was aggressive. Sam beat out maybe 80 other applicants. The biggest thing that we were looking for the BizCare office was the ability to translate our services into Spanish. We've never had that before. That was a preference of ours, and that's definitely a lot that he brings to the table. So he's teaching me a lot culturally about how to look at things from a variety of different views. So besides that, Sam has definitely brought more to the table beyond what I expected, because with the new city manager coming in, the COVID-19 happened, we had a lot of transition within the city. When I got hired to the city, I've only been there 3 years, 80% of our workforce was up for retirement. And so everybody above me and below me left. And I thought I had lost that knowledge. Sam came to the door and brought a fresh new view of the knowledge that we needed for zoning codes, food codes. So we're diving deeper than we've ever dived before from a policy perspective of what the city can do to really remove those barriers for entrepreneurs. And I think people need to understand that Kansas City is very unique with what we have with the KC BizCare office. It's been around since 2009, long before I came along, and my job was to advance it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And I hope we're probably going to talk a little bit about that too as well. But yeah, what's changed? Sam has come into the office and changed the work that we've absolutely done.
We're going to dive into that a little bit more here in just a minute. And I am always so fascinated by what the BizCare office does. I started my career as a city reporter at City Hall, so it's interesting to hear how city dealings affect our entrepreneurs here in Kansas City. So it's always, again, great to talk with you both. But I want to turn to Emma now. I want to talk a little bit about Venture Noir and bringing Venture Noir into Kansas City in the last couple of months in the course of this pandemic. And give me kind of the rundown on what it is that you're up to, and share Venture Noir with our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm up to is a lot. I don't know if you guys ever see me moving around. I'm busy. But Venture Noir essentially was started for one reason. We noticed that there was a lack of entrepreneurial support specifically for Black founders and at a specific stage. Our founder, Keenan Beasley, is a serial entrepreneur. He is the guy that does not mind hitting brick wall after brick wall. He's had a number of notable exits since he started his serial entrepreneur career. Here recently, there's one that I think a couple people may know. It's called Sunday to Sunday. And that was actually born during COVID. And what happened is he was able to get a product that he dreamed of because of his niece was in sports. And she needed hair care. She was getting out of the pool every evening. and she didn't have a product that could actually deal with her hair texture and offer her something nutrient rich and healthy in return. So chlorine, African American hair is a horror story. And so he wanted to do something for his niece. And so it's fun knowing Keenan because our calls would always look like Keenan with new hairstyles trying hair products on himself. And you have to admire somebody that played collegiate sports. And I don't know if you guys have seen Keenan, but Keenan is like over 6'4". He's massive. And I got to always see him with new hairstyles. He would have like little pigtails. He would have all types of stuff. And yes, Keenan, I'm sharing this because this is why I love Keenan as a person because he's always willing to try it on himself first. And as a founder, he just exudes that. And so with Venture Noir, it was him going through his entrepreneurial journey and feeling really alone doing it. He didn't have anybody to commiserate with. So honestly, Venture Noir was started because there was a need for community. And that's what Venture Noir still strives to be, is a community for founders of color. And right now what we're learning is by us focusing specifically in on the Black population, there are some learnings that we can transition over into other minority groups. And right now, we are successfully piloting an accelerator process, or accelerator programs. Last year, we had over 21 companies at various stages that came in. Over 4 of those companies were actively raising north of $2 million. So for anybody in here that is running accelerator, to have early stage companies and those who are actively raising money in the same space, that's a lesson. And so after 21 companies successfully went through our accelerator program and over $6.5 million was raised out of those 4 founders, one did teach us a very valuable lesson on being early stage and still need to get our foot in the door. But out of those 4 companies, $6.25 million was raised. And we had to figure out where we focused and who we wanted to support. So Venture Noir, as you know it today, was us leaning into our strengths as leaders. Keenan comes from the corporate space in CPG or consumer packaged goods. I come from the government sector where I ran the state's 529 plan and grew our plan tremendously because I'm a girl that likes to live in the trenches. I just like being with people. And when you're amongst people, you get to learn all the really valuable lessons. And so I was able to carry that into my work and move our plan from $600 million to north of $1 billion in assets under management in a few years. And so what that taught me was a good deal about what communities and the public actually needs. And so we carry all of that knowledge back into Venture Noir. And so what we're bringing you guys now is accelerators still, but now they look like they have corporate partners. One that we announced at our recent City of Entrepreneurs initiatives was the Remote Year Partnership. So we're taking 20 founders in South Africa to help them have an immersive experience, expand their network now globally, and experience what it is to be in a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. Because we want you to bring it right back to Kansas City if you happen to be from KC and you're participating in our program. Because what's better than offering founders experiences? Because that's really where you learn. And so for me, Venture Noir is all of that. And guys, I talk a lot if you hadn't noticed. I'm also Chief Operating Officer.
We know this. I almost finished my juice over here.
It took you a while to get that sip. You couldn't stop talking. Either way. But no, I came in and I'm not a big title person. I just love what I do and I love people first. And so if I do those few things, I know I'm always doing the right thing. So for me, building this organization is really about taking my experiences as an entrepreneur and layering them back in with this empathetic like eyes or views to be able to build an exceptional program that brings the best to our founders. And so we have a new program director, a new program manager, and all that brings capacity to the room, meaning I get to come up with and dream up all the new stuff to offer our founders as they go through our programs.
And I want to touch just a little bit on City of Entrepreneurs in just a second. I want to put it on pause for right now. But I want to jump back to BizCare team real quick. When you first connected with Emma and Keenan and Venture Noir, did you immediately see potential for collaboration, or kind of how did the wheels start turning when you all first connected?
I mean, as you see, she can really throw a lot at you. And so I began.
I was actually nice in that first.
She was kind of nice. She threw a lot at me, and it got my wheels spinning to say, okay, I know what we have on the ground. what do we need from a national perspective, even an international perspective for our entrepreneurs? I always think about, I take real ownership of the small businesses here in Kansas City. These are my businesses. How do I help them? How do I accelerate them? How do I expose them to different things? And what they are bringing to the table are so many things that a lot of my local ESOs aren't really, they don't really have access to right now. I don't want, like I said, I don't want them to come in and take over what's already here. I want them to bring something additional to Kansas City that we didn't already have from a national perspective. So, we got this global accelerator. There's so many other things she has lined up that is going to be really great for our entrepreneurs moving forward. But we can't really announce it just yet. But it's really us now moving forward on how do we really build a strong ecosystem. And so when we had our first conversation, that's what it was really all about. What is missing right now for our entrepreneurs in this ecosystem, particularly our Black and brown entrepreneurs, and how do we really bring and build that up so that it's inclusive, it's equitable, whatever those key buzzwords are, how do we make it work for everybody? And City of Entrepreneurs was a dream that I had walking through the door of Kansas City and working for the city. Because you would have asked me a couple of years ago, my sister's here, I'm going to point her out right there, the Hashina Webster, that's my sister right there, and she turned around looking like she don't know nobody. We were raised by entrepreneurs, and so working for our dad, it was like we kind of saw a lot of different things, and then I transitioned over to the city. You could have never told me I was going to work for the government. I was going to work for the man. But the minute I walked through the door, the one thing I wanted to do was make Kansas City the city of entrepreneurs where everybody can thrive. And when I met Emma, she showed me that, I can help you bring that alive. And then from there, we just clicked, and there's we haven't even really got started yet on what we really are about to do. And then having Sam on the team, man, this is going to be one incredible.
Sam's like
freaking
nitroglycerin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we get to be mad hatters and dream of randomness, Sam's like, okay, I can put that together. Just knock it out for that. Yeah. So we're pretty tight, but I think where the magic was in COE is very rarely ever do you get to see leaders who have a big vision. So Nia wasn't so bogged down in her work that she was still willing to dream big and dream brighter for Kansas City. And that's what I am.
And I think that was one of the first questions you asked me, who's the visionary?
I did.
Who has the vision for entrepreneurship in Kansas City? And I was like, shit, me, maybe? Let me show you.
She wasn't that humble. I think she stood up and did the Superman pose. But, you don't get to see that. And it's on a work. You can go many places and meet many people, but very rarely ever can people, step from behind their work and still really dream bigger. And what she knew is that there was an energy missing and there were some opportunities that still hadn't been hit on. And she shared this deck with me that was called City of Entrepreneurs, and we just started rattling stuff off. I'm like, oh my God, we can do so much with this, we can do so much. And I'm like, you really are the example that many cities should be learning from. Because the amount of knowledge Nia had about her founders was unlike any other place I'd gone to. And that was it. That was the energy and that desire to really lean in and do more is how this all happened.
Sips lemonade.
Well, like I said, we're going to jump into City of Entrepreneurs again in just a second to talk about what's coming up, because I know y'all had an event in this space just a few weeks back that was a wild party, and it was great. But I want to take a look at the impact of BizCare and that work that you all talk about and being in the trenches. And now, warning, there is more Sam praise in the video that we're about to see.
Always.
When we look at the impact of BizCare in our community. So let's take a look.
Most people, when I heard what we were doing, thought it was ridiculous, and we couldn't get a lease for 2 years. Even though we had an airtight business plan, we had funding, everything was in line.
Miguel Castagna, Larry and her husband's 2019 struggle to open Cafe Corazon in Westport didn't stop there. Headaches will take necessary things like city permits followed, making launching a business in KCMO anything but easy.
Without small businesses, KC wouldn't be what it is.
The impact of entrepreneurship on communities is dramatic, Castagna Herrera says, and while not everyone gets it, there's one of us that does. Working on behalf of people like her and her peers like Allie Gage, owner of Allie Gage Beauty.
Anytime I didn't know the answer to something, had a question, felt lost, confused, I called, I got an answer. If they didn't know, they would go seek the answer with me. And you can't get that kind of help from very many people.
Gage is talking about Casey BizCare, Kansas City's one-stop shop for doing business, a place where entrepreneurs can walk in with a dream and out ready to make it a reality.
I was like, wow, wait up. So this is still the city, but this is like a whole different thing.
From starting a business to applying for permits and anything in between, the BizCare office makes business ownership accessible across the metro and empowers entrepreneurs to realize their dreams stress-free. A promise that's found new impact amid the COVID-19 pandemic, which moved many BizCare services online. A major relief for Castania Herrera when Cafe Corazon expanded to the Crossroads earlier this year.
I just made a little sign-in, and all of the forms I needed were there. It was super easy. And then if I got stuck at all, I actually just called them. They're like, oh yeah, just press this, or I'll get that for you.
Gage recalls a similar simplified experience. BizCare helped her obtain a cosmetology license in the state when she relocated from California.
I was filling out this document, and there was a spot that said, like, what's your registered fictitious name? You have to add it in here. And I'm like, do I need to have one? Like, what does that even really mean? So I ended up calling Samuel Morris down in the office. I'm like, this one says this. Do I have a fictitious name? Do I need to get a fictitious name? Like, what is this?
Gage says a quick response from Morris helped solve the problem like that.
Sam actually went as far as to call the cosmetology, go through the form with them, figure out all the details, and then he called me back, left me a message, told me all the things that he learned, all the things to add, what we needed to do, and he was like, also thanks, I learned something new, you helped me out.
Castania Herrera agrees, sharing Morris helped her navigate code violations that would have kept her from getting a business license and opening the doors to the Crossroads' most popular new spot for Java.
If you need a zoning permit, they'll pull it for you. They'll help you to pull it. They're not just like, here you go, figure it out.
And for a city office, both Castania Herrera and Gage say customer service like BizCare's is a pleasant surprise.
Chains and corporations in KC seem to have kind of an easy time, but really the heartbeat of the city is small business, and I think KC BizCare actually recognizes that because they're set up to help people like us.
They want everybody to win and succeed and do things correctly, so it has been so valuable to me and really helpful, and I feel very lucky to have had their help getting started.
The city needs to probably look at them for a model for everything else.
Yes, please, clap for the people in there. All the praise for what you all have been able to do here in the city didn't stop there. I talked to these gals for 45 minutes each. I mean, they just had story after story about how you all have helped them. So give them another round of applause. And Allie's here to get around and meet her. It was a great interview, and thank you for connecting us. She helped me with another story. So she's also featured in another story on Startland News currently. But let's talk about City of Entrepreneurs now and how the way you've been able to help people here in Kansas City could potentially grow this effort. Again, we had that event a couple of weeks ago that kind of kicked everything off, but let's talk about what's next in terms of kind of activating the community, and Emma, I think we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I actually have enjoyed this project quite a bit because what Venture Noir had to do, one, and Nia helped a lot with this, is figure out how our national operation had regional impact. And because she had this vision for Kansas City, we were like, okay, we can follow that. And what Nia has done is proven that there's a lot more care we can give to small businesses, but everybody just needs that guide, or they need somebody to show them how. And so just starting from what you just saw on this Casey BizCare video, we leaned into her expertise and knowledge and said, hey, we can bring some of those elements to other cities we work with. And so here in Kansas City, we're starting with the understanding that research or data actually matters. And that's what Casey BizCare does. A lot of times when you deal with minority founders, there's like disparate data. It's all over the place. You got to go to all these different bodies to try to show one picture of what minority founders are dealing with or what those barriers are. And so our first stab at City of Entrepreneurs is getting ready to be a survey that Nia's getting ready to go out, and she can talk a little bit more about that. And after we talked about really doing this listening to her and making sure we took the time to understand what everybody's issues are, we go, okay, we take what we know from our founders and then we go back to the community, i.e. all the area privately held companies, publicly held, city, state, and actively bring them to roundtable discussions to talk about how they make this ecosystem work. One thing that I get to notice as a national accelerator is this harvesting process. And if anybody's doing this, forgive me, I'm not calling you out. But we have competition, whether you like it or not. You know, when I first came here, I did that. I listened. And I found out many people had friends that were being recruited to Tulsa, or people had friends that were being recruited out of market to other places. And what I have to remember is if we displace talent, then what is our city left with? And for me, City of Entrepreneurs was proof of how we build a positive ecosystem for our founders to stay here, grow, and continuously build our city. And so that's where we started with all of this, is how we make everybody responsible for our small business success. A lot of times we do want to go directly at government and say, hey, y'all should be doing this, but a lot of times they don't actually know. So somebody has to step up and show you at least how to start and what the right way is. And so we put ourselves out there. That was the first thing about COE.
Oh, you want me to talk now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So this relationship works.
So, like she said, we'll be launching a survey here soon. Just like anything else, you gotta check the pulse. We need to know what's going on with our small businesses. We did that. What you saw there with the website and things like that, I literally just got off a plane because I was in Columbus, Ohio, talking about innovation in our cities and what we were doing, how we got this website, how we work with GovTech developers, and really how we get startups through the door with the city or with any type of government. And so that technology has allowed us to begin to build out a data dashboard or system. And it takes time to build, but eventually we're going to get to a point to where I'll have better data than the Kaufman, than any other national organization to say, here's the state of small businesses in Kansas City. Here's where the city sits in that. Here's how you, city council people, can better advocate for the businesses in your district. Here's how you, city manager and mayor, can better build policies that help our businesses. And I want Sam to touch on a couple of things, because working with Sam has been one of the most amazing things, that he's been diving deep into so many things. I don't think you guys really understand how much Sam is going to be a real big help to breaking down those barriers and getting past these little things that how the city operates and how we're so isolated as departments, and we just kind of do things the way that we've always done it. But now that we have some new blood in it, we can say, okay, well, that might have worked before, but that's not going to work today. And our businesses really need to do some different things. And the pandemic has kind of been that double-edged sword to where, yeah, it hurt, but it also brought a lot of our small business together, and also is allowing us to kind of break a lot of different barriers and say, how are we going to do better with food, with cottage food laws? How are we going to do better with to-go liquor? How are we going to do better with different things that help our small businesses expand? And I want to pause for a moment and let Sam kind of talk about just a few things that he's discovered, because he actually has been super amazing, because it's literally just me and him. We touch thousands of businesses a year, and it's just two people right now. And it just shows you what innovation with great partnerships can have and what they can do to kind of really expand the efforts and really kind of help our small businesses kind of get off the ground. So I want to pause real quick, like Sam kind of talk about those
Yeah,
things.
certainly. So the advocacy of our office is really a two-way street, right? We, as you saw in the video, we'll sit with our business owners, and that's honestly my favorite part of the day, is because I come from entrepreneurs, Mia comes from entrepreneurs. Like, we understand that it's more than just a paycheck or more than just a business bank account monthly statement. Like, I know that that's food on the table, or that's like somebody's identity, or that's somebody's heart, or that's somebody's homage to their ancestors, right? So that's where we get the drive, and that level of advocacy of let's help you navigate this permitting system, or let's help you apply for XYZ is half of our job. But when the phones ain't ringing, which honestly it isn't that
Rare. That's rare.
but when the phones aren't ringing, that's when we really get to dive into those existing processes and talk to the permits division, or talk to the fire department or the health department and say, hey, why is this way? And is it really necessary for the business owners to go through these, umpteen steps that we have to handhold them through? Why can't we just clean up your processes? And our vision for that, we'll use the health department as an example, because that's something that touches all of us when we go eat at a restaurant, is that's a really tricky permit to obtain. And I think the buy-in from health is, look, we'll help study your food code. We'll read what the FDA said in 2018, and we'll read what the city manager says this year, and we'll create a process that helps more businesses apply to it and makes it almost encouraging. Like, people would want to get a health permit. People aren't dreading their yearly inspection. They know exactly what to expect. And as the consumer, you can go in, you know that you're supporting small businesses, but also you know that the health permit that's hanging on the wall comes from people who also support small businesses.
And I wanted to touch on that because starting with the city, that's the foundation. And when I came to the city was kind of like on the outside. You're like the redheaded sister just kind of sat over here, and everybody just kind of existed in this ecosystem. But it was like, you don't teach people how to get a business license. You don't know the permits, you don't know the zoning codes, you don't know the food codes. So you can put them in classrooms all day long, but when they come to me, or when it comes to for them to actually be legit, there's no one teaching them that. And so it was so ironic that the city has something like this going on, and I don't really think they knew what they had at the time. And I was like, this, I'm trying to not cuss, this is dope. I don't know if this is a G or PG show, but this shit is dope, and let me show you how you can really accelerate that. And so City of Entrepreneurs at its foundation is the city. And if we're not in the center, if we're not a part of that, none of this shit is going to work. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you can go to South Africa, you can go over here, you can go over there, but when it comes to being legit, because you won't be able to get a loan, you won't be able to get a bank account, you won't be able to get your proper permits and licensing, because people do call us and snitch on you. They snitch every day. Especially if you're a home-based business. But we are looking deeper to say, you know, how policies actually impact you as entrepreneurs. And it's much more than what you really know. And if we can actually change that, then it's going to make it so much easier for you to operate as a business that you can go anywhere. And that's our job, and that's our goal. I want you to thrive here, and I want you to go anywhere, and I want you to be anything, and I want you to be as big as you want to be or as small as you want to be. But I want you to thrive, and I want Kansas City to be that city of entrepreneurs.
Well, with that, we're out of time, but I could talk to you all about this all day. And we do actually have a bonus interview that I did with the two of you on Zoom. That's going to be going out on social media. So again, if you're not following us on social media, give us a follow so that you can check that follow-up interview out. But I want to thank you three for joining us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of our guests. Yes, please, round of applause for all of our guests tonight, including yourselves. Thank you all for being here and welcoming us back to the live event world after this pandemic, or wherever we're at in this pandemic. 2 years since we had a live event. We missed seeing all of you, and we're so glad to reconnect with you or to connect with you for the first time tonight. So get around, network a little bit. We've still got a little time on the clock left. We have a jobs board station up front. If you're not familiar with our jobs board, if you're looking for work or you have a job to post, head up there and check that out and figure out how to do all of that. It's all
City's hiring.
Yeah.
City's hiring. We need people.
Yes,
City's
there you
hiring.
go. It's all pretty self-explanatory up there at the front. We've also got t-shirts for sale designed by local artists, which support local entrepreneurship. So you can check those out as well. And of course, check out Google Fiber back there in the back. Thank you to Google Fiber for supporting this event. This was 2 years in the making. We were thinking how we could reconnect, how we could connect with our audience in a different way. So this event is it's an experiment tonight, but we are glad that you were all here, and we welcome your feedback as we look to retool and make live events something more meaningful again. So thank you again to Google Fiber. Thank you to Spark for hosting us, for being a fantastic partner and for supporting this event. Thank you as well to the Kauffman Foundation, to our team at Casey BizCare, and to Evergy Ventures. And with that, head back out and have some fun. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
That's what we're doing.